This is MGF 1107, Chapter 10, Section 2. This deals with personal loans and simple interest. First of all, let's go through some terms. The money a bank or other lender is willing to lend you is called the amount of credit extended, or the principal of the loan. Make sure you understand principal. This is what we're going to be using a lot. Security is anything of value pledged by the borrower that the lender may sell or keep if the borrower does not repay the loan. Security, a lot of people, when they mortgage a house, the house is security for the mortgage. Banks sometimes grant loans without security, but they require a signature from one or more other persons called co-signers who guarantee the loan will be repaid. Then it says, for either of the two types of loans, the secured loan or the co-sign loan, the borrower and co-signer, if there is one, must sign an agreement called a personal note. This document states the terms and conditions of the loan. Then we get into simple interest. Simple interest is a formula you've commonly probably seen it as IPRT. So when we talk about simple interest, I represents interest, P represents principal, R represents rate. Remember, rate must be in a decimal form. T represents time, which is in years. Let's just look at some example problems dealing with simple interest. This is on page 574 of your textbooks. It said, and make sure you understand, the most common type of simple interest is called ordinary interest. When computing ordinary interest, we will use the banker's rule. The banker's rule states that a month has 30 days, a year has 12 months, and therefore a year only has 360 days. We'll use the 365. Okay? When computing ordinary interest using an annual interest, simple interest rate, if the time given is 5 months, then we will use T as 5 divided by 12. Remember, I told you T has to be in years. If the time given is in days, then we'll do 73 minus 3 divided by 360. So you always got to convert your time into years if it's not already in years. So here's the first example problem. Sherry needs to borrow $6,200 to replace a roof on her home. From her credit union, Sherry obtains a 30-month loan with an annual simple interest rate of 5.75%. Calculate the simple interest she is charged on the loan. Determine the amount, principal plus interest. All right, so here's what happens. Her principal is $6,200, so it goes in place of P. We convert the 5.75% to 0.0575. And then the time is going to be 30 months divided by 12, which is 2.5 years. Do the math, we get $891.25. If we then add that $891.25 of interest to the principal, her total amount that she's going to pay is going to be $7,091.25. Second example problem, we're going to determine an annual interest rate. So Philip agrees to lend $850 to his friend Joe to help Joe travel to Cincinnati to attend a family wedding. 9 months later, Joe repaid the original $850 plus $51 interest. What annual rate of interest did Joe pay Philip? So we put the 51 in for I, $850 for principal. R is what we're trying to find. 9 months divided by 12 is 0.75. We do the math, simple algebra, we find out that the interest rate was 0.08, which is actually 8%. We talk about pawn loans. It says to obtain money for new eyeglasses, Gilbert decides to pawn his trumpet. Gilbert borrows $240, and after 30 days gets his trumpet back by paying the pawnbroker $288. what annual rate of interest did Gilbert pay? All right, so the first thing we do is we take the $288 that he paid back, subtract the $240 that he borrowed. He paid $48 interest. 30 days is considered a month. So we've got 48 equals 240 times R times 1 over 12. 1 over 12. Do the math and we find out that the interest rate is 2.4. So he's paying 240% interest on his loan to a pawn shop. Because if we take that 2.4 from the previous section and multiply by 100, it becomes 240% interest. Look at example 5. Example 5 says, Rodney owns a snow plowing business. He needs to purchase a snow plow for the front of his truck, but does not have the $1,600 purchase price. The equipment dealership has 2 payment options. Option 1, Rodney can pay $800 as a down payment and then pay $850 in 6 months. With option 2, Rodney can pay $400 as a down payment and then pay $1,380 in 9 months. Which option has a higher annual interest rate? So what we do is we use our formula. There's the 50, which is the interest rate that he's paying, because if you take 800 and 850, he's paying $50 interest. Here's the initial, or the principal. Here's the interest rate. Do the math. This is 12.5%. On the second example, or the second option, here he puts 400 down, which leaves 1,200. If we take 1,200 from 1,380, we find out he's paying $180 interest. $1,200 at 0.75, we find out he's paying 20%. So the best option is option 1. Okay, this is called the United States rule, and basically what it says, every loan has a date of maturity, at which time the principal and the interest are due. It is possible to make payments on a loan before the date of maturity. The payment that is less than the full amount owed and made prior to the due date is known as a partial payment. Supreme Court decision specified the method by which these payments are credited. This procedure is called the United States rule. Okay, in the United States rule, it states that if a partial payment is made on a loan, interest is computed on the principal from the first day of the loan until the date of the partial payment. The partial payment is used to pay the interest first, then the rest of the payment is used to reduce the principal. An individual can make as many partial payments as he or she wishes. The procedure is repeated for each payment. So what it's basically saying is, this is how your credit cards work. When you have a minimum due, usually the minimum payment only covers a little bit of principal, but all interest. So the bank wants to make sure they get all their money. What happens next is, they developed a chart. And so it says, we will use the banker's rule to calculate the sum interest when applying the United States rule. Recall that the banker's rule considers a year to have 360 days, and any fractional part of a year to be the exact number of days divided by 360. So, let's go to an example problem and see how we use this chart. Here it says, determine the due date of a loan made on April 7th for 180 days. So what we do is we first of all go to the chart and we find 7, because it's going to be due on the 7th date, the day 7. We follow it over to April, we find out 97. So there's 97 days to April 7th. If we take that 97 days and we add it to the 180 days for it to be due, we can see we're at day 277. So 97 plus 180. Remember, 97 is the 97th day, which is April 7th. 180 days is the days that we have to pay it. So we have 277 days. So basically what happens is, come back to the chart, we're going to find day 277. We're going to see we're in October. And if we follow it over here, we're October 4th. So the loan is due on October 4th. Once again, April 7th is what we did here. We came down the April column to the 7th day, 97 days. We added those 97 days to the 180 days maturity. That gave us 277. We came over here, found day 277, which is in October. And it's the 4th of October. Second part of this problem just says, determine the number of days from March 15th to November 18th. So here we are again. We're at the March column. We come down to 15. We can see that it's 74. Here's the November column. And we come down to 18, which is right here at 322. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take that 322, subtract 74 from it, and we find out that there's 248 days between March 15th and November 18th.